I just want my son to call me. That's it. He doesn't have to even say much. Just shoot me a text. Hey, Dad, what's up? My heart, I get excited. Why do I get so excited? Because he took time out and did that? You know what? I'm not going to take care of him any less if he never does. But man, I love the relationship of it. So you want to know what I am now as I walk this out? I'm just a guy enjoying his relationship with his father. I'm loving knowing him. And I get excited that I get to tell you about him, and maybe you can enjoy knowing him as well and loving him. This is that great adventure. So, when Jesus says to his disciples, let's cross over to the other side, here's the indisputable truth about traveling on the sea. If Jesus has said to you, let's cross over to the other side, are you going to make it to the other side? The guarantee in that sentence is let's. That's it. You can stop. You don't even need anything else. If he says let's, I'm on. I'm in. Where are we going? What are we doing? Oh, we're going to jump over a mountain? Let's jump over a mountain. What are we going to do? You and me? Let's do that. Let's cross over to the other side. You don't have to worry about storms. You don't have to worry about your phobias. You don't have to worry about your insecurities. You don't have to worry about how you're going to get back tomorrow. How are we going to go over to the other side? How are we going to get back tomorrow? You don't talk to him like a travel agent. You just say, let's do that. Let's cross over to the other side. Now, the mentality of these men, they're Jewish men. They've been raised on Torah. They've been singing the Psalms their entire lives. They spend a large portion of their lives hitting synagogue and temple and offering up sacrifices. They have a Jewish heritage. They have, in a lot of ways, things we cannot possibly really understand. Even if you know a Jew, you say, well, I work with Jews. The temple sacrificial Jewish system, entirely different than the rabbinical Jewish system you know today. And so it would have been... Their lives were so inexorably linked to the teachings of Torah and the prophets and the songs that what takes us Sunday school, 20 years of Sunday school to mine out in a story, they would have been hearing that from the time that was how they would have learned their language. It was how they would have learned their religion and their culture. And so whenever we talk about crossing over, we're thinking, let's go from point A to point B on the other side of the Sea of Galilee. They're thinking of the crossing over of their people. Because for them, it's all about their people. In the American identity, we've become very individualized. Very individualized in the American identity. We're unusual. And it's caused us a lot of friction with how we deal with the rest of the world. It also causes us friction when we deal with the immigrant and the stranger. Because most of the rest of the world are very culturally identified. They're very identified by their diet. They're very identified by their clothing. They're very identified by their skin tone. They're very identified by their language. And Americans sort of pride themselves on an individualism. I'm not saying one's right and one's wrong. It's just we need to understand that. It will help us in dealing with people of cross cultures. So for a Jewish man in the time of Jesus, it's group identity. There's very large group identity. So when Jesus says, let's cross over to the other side, they're going to be thinking in group identity terms. And what was the first great crossing of Israel? Red Sea. When they get to the Red Sea, they've come out of Egyptian slavery, which is the story of the Exodus. And every Jewish man would have known the story of the Exodus, the coming out of slavery into what's ultimately a promised land. And that was an overarching theme for what they felt like the world was. We're on our way to a promised land. And they believed in Jesus because they believed this was the guy that was going to get them there. This, by the way, we believe in this Jesus because he's Moses 2.0. That was their thinking. Moses took us out of one land and into another land. This Jesus is going to take us out of Rome and into an even better land, and we're along for the ride. That was why there was great disappointment at the cross, because they just killed Moses 2.0. And if you killed Moses, how are you going to get across the other side? And that's why you and I as believers cling to that resurrection, because that's that new creation promised land reality. So for them, it's Red Sea. And what's the Red Sea? It's where God shows up. And here's just the mini version, the Cliff Notes version of the Red Sea. Israel's left the land of Egypt. They've only been out there a few weeks. They've left the land of Egypt. We know it's only been a few weeks because Pentecost happens at Sinai, the giving of the law. And that's 50 days after the Passover, and Jesus dies Passover week. And they had Passover when they left Egypt, and they have Pentecost at Sinai. So it's not been but a few weeks of wandering, not wandering, moving towards the promised land. And they hit the banks of the Red Sea. And Pharaoh has sent his army, and you know this story. He has sent his army to follow them, and they have nowhere to go. And they begin to say to Moses, you brought us out here, we're going to die. If they don't kill us, that's going to kill us. And Moses goes to the Lord and says, I don't know what to do. I brought him out here. You told me to bring him out here. This is the way you told me to go. I think Moses probably said this to the Lord. There was better ways to go, but you led me here. I think he had to say that because I would have said that, and you would have said that. And he had a pretty good face-to-face relationship with God. I think he would have said, there were better ways, and you took us out here, and it's Red Sea. And God says to him, basically, zip it, turn around, face the Red Sea, and see the salvation of the Lord. And so Charlton Heston turns around, and puts his rod up in the air, and then the Red Sea parts, and Israel walks across on dry ground. And then Egypt runs in, and God floods it, and the enemy is drowned beneath the sea, and Israel has moved from point A to point B. How did they get there? A miracle. That's one way to get to the other side. And you know what? Sometimes you got to have it. But you better not rely on the parting of the Red Sea.